Okay, hi folks. If you don't know what time it is already, unfinished business time. Yeah, I'm just gonna be annoying with this every week, folks. But this week is not our regular show. It is our special, show that we like to give you guys, where we do a deep dive into some movie that is a favorite or rather infamous that we have picked to talk about. And this week is an interest. Oh, before I even start, hello. I am Jeff Gallashaw, the host of Unfinished Business. You can find me on Instagram at Projector J1, yada yada yada. I'll give you some information at the end. But my co-host is, as always, Mr. Andre Joseph.
AJ Epyx Productions follow me at AJ Epyx on Instagram and Twitter.
So there you go. If you don't know, now you know. Hopefully you're watching this on YouTube, but you can also probably catch this on Facebook, or this a crazy little thing called Instagram. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. But anyway, to get to where I was interrupted myself from, this week we have an interesting title. This week for a deep dive, we're picking I picked a movie that is actually a television movie, but a rather infamous one. And that, let me tell you the history. I did not know. I remember pieces of this movie, but I was only reminded of this when I was reading a book by Kiara Japanese. I probably got that name totally wrong. But it was a book I picked up at the Alamo Drafthouse, which has recently reopened, and it was all about all these movies that were made for kids in the 70s and 80s, starring kids usually too. And that was where I got the title from, The Children of Times Square. So, I was like, I kind of remember this, but I want to see this. And luckily, I found it on YouTube. And then I watched it there. And then, wouldn't you know it, a full 6 months later, if you are lucky enough to have the TV. So, not only did I see it for a first time, but I've been recently being reminded of it almost every day that it comes on. So, The Children of Times Square is a TV movie written and directed by Curtis Hanson, who a lot of you might have heard of. He directed Wonder Boys, amongst a lot of other Hollywood films. The River Wild with Meryl Streep, Kevin Bacon, David Strathairn, and John C. Reilly. And I believe he directed a little film by LA Confidential, multiple Oscar nominated, starring Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce, two famous Australian actors. And Kim Basinger won Best Supporting Actress for the movie, adapted from James Ellroy's novel. But we're not here to talk about that movie. We're talking about Curtis Hanson's early career, making this movie, The Children of Times Square. A brief synopsis of the plot. Brandon Douglas plays a young man whose mother has gotten remarried, and he feels like his stepfather doesn't want him around, and his mother probably wants to be happy with this guy, so he decides, I'm going to run off to New York. So,
by the way, what was his name in the movie?
I have no idea. I can't remember. I can't remember these characters' names.
His name was Eric Roberts.
Oh, how could I forget that stupid? So, yeah, you see what type of film we're dealing with here. Now, it's supposed to be a serious, of the era, problem that's going on. So he falls in with a group of street kids, and some homeless, some not, and he's our entry into this world. Also, Danny Nucci's character, who has just moved into a kind of halfway house hotel with his sisters and his mother, and he wants to make more money so that he can get them out of that situation. So these are our two introductions into what I will call Howard Rollins Jr.'s gang, as he plays a middle-aged man who has these teenagers dealing dope for him. But not before Brandon Douglas falls into what looks like an easy sort of life, working with this guy he meets at an arcade who's like, hey man, all you got to do is work with Miguel and, you know, hang out with these old guys. And he's like, oh, that's all I got to do? Cool. And then only then does he realize, oh yeah, these guys want to have sex with him. So, you know, he goes, A runs off before the old guy can basically predator him. And then the pimp is upset, like, you upset the clients? Miguel has no problem. And Miguel's happy because he got ice cream. So he doesn't really care. And before this white pimp, mind you, can beat him up, Skater comes along, played by my man, Larry B. Scott. And, you know, he's got the headband, got the leather jacket. And he's like, yay, man, back off. He's with your crew? I didn't know. So then he's introduced to Howard Rollins and the rest of the crew. I'm going to stop here to say, Alexandre, how were you introduced to this movie?
I think I saw this on YouTube just like you did. I think it was just like a random search where, I don't know, I've had this fascination with these old made-for-TV movies from like the 80s and the 90s. And this one popped up because of Curtis Hanson being the director. And it's interesting in the sense that, yeah, it's a pretty far-fetched plot, but you got to remember New York in the 80s, especially in Times Square, how sleazy it was. And there were actually, you know, kids dealing drugs, running around the streets, being used as little prostitutes. And unfortunately, some of that stuff still happens today. Not always in New York either. But what's interesting to me watching it is like there's so many like talented actors in it. You know, Joanna Cassidy, Howard Rollins, yes, Larry B. Scott. I mean, he was working like all the time back then. Devereaux White from Die Hard, who's also like a Facebook friend of mine. And then Robert Elswit, who is Paul Thomas Anderson's cinematographer from Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood. He shot this movie for Curtis Hanson. So there's some real top-notch talent for a movie that feels pretty damn outdated.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously definitely outdated. It's a time capsule, but also Jason Bernard, who a lot of people, most of you will probably recognize from Liar, Liar, and Herman's Head, plays the police detective who explains to Brandon Douglas's mother, played by Joanna Cassidy of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead fame, that, among others, that
on top of that, Rose.
Exactly, and he's basically telling her the gist, like all these kids run away from home, they come here, they get taken advantage of, like this poor girl, she's injuring herself because she's getting raped at home by her stepfather, and she's injuring herself, so we'll keep her here longer, but she'll be back on the streets because she'll just escape and come back. And cue ending, that's exactly what happens to this character. But that character proves to be integral to the plot because she tries to tell Brandon Douglas's character that his mother is in the city looking for him, but tell Skater, and Skater's like, do you really want me to reunite with your mom? And when he's like, no, she don't care about me, he's like, okay, and doesn't pass on any of this info. Like this movie, you could see this is one of those movies that was supposed to be hard-hitting at the time where everybody's like, this actually goes on. Mm-hmm. And I remember being a kid going to Times Square, of course, not unaccompanied. So I remember these arcades, and I always had heard that they were dangerous, but I guess I didn't see it. But again, I was always with a parent, so nobody was going to try and approach me, with, an adult around protecting me. But now, okay, the movie, I don't mean to laugh. This is a serious subject, but like you said, it's just so outdated that when you think of certain scenes, it's like, oh, that's messed up. But it's kind of also cinematically a little funny looking at it now. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, one of our leads does not make it till the end. Let me put it to you this way. One character is Caucasian. One character is Hispanic. Who do you think makes it to the end? If you've seen the movie End of Watch, you have your answers. It's right there. Okay. During the movie, Howard Rollins shows what happens if you steal from his stash, or even if your money is up short. He hangs a kid by his ankles, basically does what Red does in the 5 Heartbeats with a lot less yelling or accompaniment. So when one of the characters obviously starts getting high on his own supply, so to speak, Red calls him out, especially when he's taking money from other people to pay off his own things. And then later in the film, after he's been banished from the gang, so to speak, we see him and he's trying to borrow money from them. And they, like every gang, has disassociated with him. And then we see, oh no, he's working with Miguel and the White Pimp. And, you know, the last look he gives before going off with these same two old men, apparently they're the only clients. It's so wrong to say this, but again, as I said on a previous episode, it's like you expect that wah, 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 or Curb Your Enthusiasm music to go to, like, this is what happens if you don't follow the rules. And though I know in real life, Howard Rollins has had his problems with drugs. I don't know if he was using at the time, but watching his performance, I would think so, because in a lot of his performance, it just seems he's not all there. You know, like it could be the script, because apparently, also according to this movie, if you're wearing a fedora, you're a criminal in this movie. And you know, his performance just seems so like he's acting not with partners, but just for himself. A lot of scenes, at least to me, that's how it came off.
Yeah, and then the whole time you see him pretty much mostly going into like some abandoned building to meet with these kids and to give them their money, get his commissions, and then later on when they try to find him after they get robbed, they find him in like this nice high-rise apartment, you know, where he's like dealing the drugs with the guy that's supplying his stuff. It's like, okay, well, there seems to be a little more going on with this guy than we actually know. And I feel like there was a little more that was missing to this film because of that.
Well, yeah, because he's playing like, he's sort of this Pip character, you know, where it's like, oh, I'm getting all this money, but I'm giving you pocket change so you can survive and live in this abandoned building with rats all together. And it's like, I mean, it gives them money. And, you know, like, for instance, Danny Nucci buys his family a new television. And his mother does ask, where'd you get the money? And he's like, don't worry about it. And, you know, apparently she did have something to worry about, because we see what happens to him. But what I found really interesting, first of all, your friend, or your Facebook friend, Devereux White, however, I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. He's the snappiest dresser in this movie. I mean, he got the long overcoat. He's got like the hair going in braids way before Tracy Chapman came along. Honestly, and we knew about that being a stylish choice, more or less. You know, and he's just like, he's sort of like the silent enforcer in the back, even though we never see him rough up anybody. But with this movie, since we're talking, I'll stay on the subject of Howard Rollins. First of all, his doorman is the worst doorman in the world, because he's just like giving up information like it's tomorrow. And I find it, spoiler alert, I find it interesting that Larry B. Scott becomes the Iago of this movie.
That's where I have an issue with the ending, but you know, finish your thought. I have some.
Okay. All this for a leather trench coat. The betrayal just for which wasn't even that impressive, even by that time standards. You know, it didn't have an 8-ball on the back. You know, that was what was big in '86. You know, and also we also find out after this, he's had a grandmother he could stay with the whole time, who obviously is elderly. So she's just like, hey, I guess he comes home. So, and you know, the cops have no problem giving him back his grandmother. Like, it just seems like they're after, you know, what they're witness to her in. Which, by the way, I'm just going to spoil this ending before you get to your issue. Towards the end, they find the two dealers who they roughed up and then robbed them, and then they bring their boss, and that is the end of a certain character storyline. And now Howard Rollins find out about this, is like, wait, they took your money? Forget about who they might have like gotten rid of. They took your money? So we go to this bar, which has no problem letting minors in, by the way. And then these two guys just stare each other down, and you're waiting for this big thing. It's like, no, a cop comes in, time for shootout. And again, I just like how the lady could just grab a police officer, like, follow me, and brings him into the middle of the shootout. But yes, now go on with how the Larry B. Scott storyline you had a problem with.
Yeah, actually, before I get to that thought, one of the things that stood out to me watching this film is it feels like it could be in the same universe as the Equalizer, the original Equalizer
The
series
show.
with Edward Woodward. And there actually was an episode like this movie that involved a runaway girl who got caught up with some pornographers, and he ends up being hired by the parents to find the girl. So it's almost like at times I'm watching this thing like, when's Robert McCall going to show up and save this kid from Howard Rollins? Because this is definitely like the exact tone and look of that TV show. So that's just like a thought that I have right there. But my biggest issue with this movie is ending, because it's like Curtis Hanson is trying to be like super ironic. So on one hand, you have the happy ending where the Eric kid gets back to his mother. So they're going to go off and he's never going to get into trouble ever again. And he's warned by the cops. So if you ever come back, we'll throw you in jail. But then they want to throw this ironic slant with Larry B. Scott where, because he saw what was in Otis's book or Howard Rollins's character's book, that, oh, I'm going to be the next guy. I'm going to take over. And, but he's like, but you're going to be just like him. Well, I'm going to be smarter. So I'm not going to have the problems like he did. So, okay, at that moment, any other writer probably would have the white kid start like backing away from him and saying, okay, I want nothing to do with this guy. He's pretty much going to be on the dead end of this thing. You even have like the shot where you see like the guard railing of the police station and it looks like metal bars of a jail, like, and he's right behind it. So it's clearly trying to set you up to say this kid ain't going nowhere. But they're still like shaking hands and, oh, don't get caught. And they're acting like they're still going to be buddies or they're going to hang out. Something was totally off with that script at that moment. And then to try to end the movie with the crippled ass girl walking around trying to get a hookup. It's like you're trying to like hammer us over the head by saying like, how badly it is to be like a kid in New York without your parents. This is what happens when you run away. But you're just being stupid. It's like you're trying to say too much in this one film to be so hard-hitting, but it comes off comedical and it takes away from the tone you already set up, which is he's with a bad gang. These kids aren't going anywhere. They're going to end up in jail or dead. Why is he still hanging out with Larry B. Scott? Why are they still being buddies when this guy's going to end up dead in a year?
Well, that's the only thing that was missing. I was looking for that Boys in the Hood ending where we see Larry B. Scott walking away and like, he was murdered 6 months later.
Yes, where's the text that says he got shot like a week later? It's like there's no justification for it. It's like, no, shake hands, don't get caught. Like, I don't want to be buddies with that guy. I want to get the fuck away from him.
Because in reality, he's going to turn 18, high school graduation. He's going to be, hey, guys, I know I got an inn in New York. Go to him and try and buy like some drugs for a party weekend.
I think it's like the equivalent of, and he turned out better as he became an adult. It's like when New Edition kicked out Bobby Brown from the band because he was doing drugs and doing stupid stuff that didn't fit the New Edition image. But he was still their boy, so they still hung out with him. They still went on tour with him. They had a reunion tour, and like everything is fine. That's what this is like.
Well, hey, it's like real life. That's what happened with New Edition. It wasn't like, oh no, and they never spoke again. But like I said, it's comedic looking back at it. But I could see this as shocking America at the time. Like, whoa, what? And that poor girl, crippled girl. Like, hey, mister, you want a date?
Too. This was on air on ABC. And 3 years before this movie, they put out The Day After, the movie about the nuclear blast and the aftermath of it. And it scared the shit out of the whole country to where it was like one of the highest rated television events in history. It was up there with MASH, the ending. Mm-hmm. So it was like ABC at that time, and I think all the other networks too were trying to get like that hard-hitting, thing that was going to make everybody talk, for the weeks and years to come, and they completely dropped the ball on this.
Well, I mean, I guess they had their Donahue and Oprahs at the time that if you really wanted to delve deeper into the subject, let's interview some X ones or a Geraldo Rivera more likely, because it's more exploitive than anything. But, like I said, it was like, it's a nice try, sort of like when they made that, I don't know, I think it was CBS when they made that TV movie about cocaine, and they had Bruce Leroy as the love interest in that one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, it's sort of like that. Misguided, hilarious to look at, but you can see what they were trying at least to come across. I mean, they succeeded mostly, and like I said, all the talent involved that luckily went on to bigger and better, Would
you say this movie is better than Death Drug with Philip Michael Thomas, where he smokes the angel dust and he goes like ridiculously crazy,
and he's trying to be a recording star?
Yes, he record like
this is
Vice. He had that video where he was like playing the piano badly. This
is way better, only because first of all, Death Drug is barely a movie. It's like, 70 minutes? And then ABC, realizing we don't have enough material for 2 hours, then has a 30-minute special that Philip Michael, is it Philip? It's Philip Michael,
Philip
right?
Michael Thomas. Great
Philip
actor, by the way.
I'm going all over. Philip Michael Thomas.
He's a serious professional.
Who hosts a 30-minute special after it to talk about what we've just seen. That shows you how kind of stupid the movie was in the first place. And it still didn't even have a hit single from him at the end. Because we all know he went on to that memorable recording career like his co-star Don Johnson. But Philip Michael Thomas did not have Heartbeat. It's okay. Don Johnson did. But yeah, this movie's way better. It even has a better behind-the-scenes crew working on it behind it, So I would say yes, because I was going to bring up that movie. I was going to ask you the same question, because I just recently saw that one.
Yeah, thankfully, this film did not sink anybody's career. Curtis Hanson went on to make an underrated classic called The Bedroom Window, starring Steve Guttenberg.
So you feel Death Drug ruined Michael Thomas's career?
Well, he had Miami Vice, but then after that, he just decided to stay in Florida. And what do you do? A Superboy episode and Nashville?
Hey, that's on him, man. That is on him. Death Drug's like, hey, that wasn't me, man. Hey, I'm just trying to be here, be a movie, cash in.
Philip Michael Thomas, if you're watching this, please call me. I will dust off your career, and I have the perfect film that will get you back on track.
Okay, well, that was it. But it reminded me what you said about the Equalizer. This whole TV movie is like a 5-minute plot line in the Equalizer Denzel Washington movie.
When is he coming out to save everybody?
It's pretty much that. So it's like, teenage prostitution. Not as many characters, but it sums up this movie pretty much in 5 minutes.
This would be great. Like, I know because you have the Queen Latifah show, but if they ever made a third Equalizer, and let's say if Howard Rollins never died in real life, there is money in Denzel Washington versus Howard Rollins Jr. in an Equalizer 3 with this same plot. And, it would be a reunion from the movie A Soldier Story, because that's when they worked together. That would have been money right there. If that guy had not killed himself or did drugs or however way he died.
Well, he died of a drug overdose.
Yeah, no, he should have cleened himself up and he would have had a comeback with Denzel.
Hey, he tried to have a comeback. He was on that New York Undercover episode.
Yeah.
I would say, though, if they ever remade this or use that plot line for Equalizer 3, the only time I will probably ever say this, I'm totally giving that role to Terrence Howard.
If they remade it, it wouldn't be in New York. You would have to call it like the Children of Chicago, the South Side of Chicago, or the Children of South Central LA. Actually, that's more gentrified now. But like any poor urban city in America.
Okay, just go with there. I was gonna say you're gonna keep trying to guess places and be like, but
then Tampa, Florida.
Hey, it could happen. My thing is with this movie. See, after you got into the geography, I just forgot my point. I'm like, I was gonna had something profound. Oh, now I remember. If you really want to watch a better version of this movie with slightly older adults, watch Where the Day Takes You, directed by Mark Rocco. because that's another movie that deals with homeless teenagers, but really they look like older adults.
And it
but
was Will Smith's first acting role outside the Fresh Prince.
Oh, I was gonna say not his first, but it's pretty
movie.
much
Yeah,
it's pretty much an all-star cast if you watch it now. You'll be like, hey, that's that person. It was also, I think, one of the first times Dermot Mulroney actually had a leading role. And,
that's right.
And if you ever want to see Sean Astin play a male prostitute with David Arquette, this is your movie. It's actually a movie I actually enjoy. I might explore this movie in the future episode.
Is that on YouTube?
I don't know if it's on YouTube. I used to have it on VHS though.
Yeah,
that's how much I like
never find it, but I'm gonna try to find it now.
If I find any links, I'll let you know, and you, dear audience. But I can't talk about that on the show. So, is there anything else you have to say about the Children of Times Square from 1986?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely, like I said, there's ideas in there for that period that were worth exploring at that time. I mean, 86 was the beginning of the crack epidemic and all the shit that was going on in New York at that time. It certainly is, like, if you want to look at a capsule of what New York life was like back then, the seedy side of it, it's worth watching for that and for the talent before they blew up, or, you know, people that were relevant at that time. Otherwise, it is outdated as shit, and it is cheesy in many points.
Well, it's a TV movie. We also have to keep in mind that this isn't our usual where we talk about something that actually made it to theaters. It was a TV movie, so it had an agenda in of itself. But I'll say, while it's no hookers at the point from HBO, when it comes to the seedy side of things, I say it's worth watching just as a time capsule. And if you want to just see something of what Times Square was supposedly like at the time, you know, it's not hard hitting, but it tries to be serious. It's after school special material, honestly.
It's prime time after school movie. Stay home, stay out of trouble, don't do drugs, just say no. I mean, if you grew up in the 80s, we've been through those PSAs. So this is all just 2-hour PSA.
So, okay, that will be the end of our discussion on the Children of Times Square, which you can find on Grio TV, or you can watch on YouTube.
I think on Epyx too, on the Epyx channel.
On Epyx, I don't have that channel, but if any of you have it out there, go for it. But take your time. So that is the end of this week's episode. Again, if you want to reach me, I am Unfinished B2 on Instagram. I go by my name on Facebook, and Projector J2 on Instagram, and also Unfinished. No, I'm messing up my own grades. Okay, it's Unfinished B2 on Instagram and Projector J1 also on Instagram. Yes, I have more than one account. One is a more work account, more is a just general account. Also, you can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on, what's that other service again? Oh yeah, Facebook. I'm all out of it right now. I was so passionate about that movie. And Andre, where can the people see you?
Follow me at AJ Epyx on Twitter and Instagram. You can check out all the info about my movies, including the films that are going to be taken off of Amazon soon, by going to my website, ajepyxproductions.com. And I'm on Facebook, Andre Joseph, or just go to my fan page, AJ Epyx Productions.
So if any of you have any questions, whether this is live, my flubbing will pretty much cement that. But before we go, as you know, there's always business to tend to, especially Unfinished, as there is plenty. But I must ask you folks, have you seen the movie Dogfight? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what movie would you send out to the people?
Have you seen the movie Last Embrace? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
And with that, we leave you good people until the next time.